Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Michelle Krusiec about Bite-Size Huluween. Her film, NIAN, is part of that this year, which is streaming on Hulu, all the movies. Michelle, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
It's
exciting.
it's spooky season, right? It is spooky season, and we want to watch a lot of spooky stuff, right? So this is perfect.
Yes, exactly. Especially spooky Chinese New Year stuff.
Absolutely. A lot of people, we talked off there. A lot of people have seen your acting work, and a lot of amazing things. And, you wore many hats on this. You wrote and directed this short. Did you always know you wanted to do both, or did it kind of just happen on camera, behind the camera?
I think that I started out as an actor as a young kid, and you just gravitate towards the stage because you're looking for some visibility in your life. And I came from a very sheltered childhood, so that's how I got some visibility. And in college, I started writing and acting and writing. And I think as the years progressed as an actor, I've been doing it for close to 30 years now in the film industry. I knew that I would eventually move into directing, but I just knew that as a writer, I needed to know what I had to say personally as a director before I really took.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I wanted to ask you, because I'm always curious about this. Did the film, which one came first? Did you make NIAN and then Bite-Size Huluween, was an opportunity? Was this, yeah, exactly. I just want to know about that.
Yeah, it really is. I really have to credit them for opening this other part of my brain. I had no clue that I could do horror. I really had no clue. I mean, I know I can do tension, and I could do thriller, and I could do psychological thriller. That's kind of what my last short was.
You're talking from directing and writing, right?
Yes.
Because I know from acting you can do horror. I know you can.
Yes. And gosh, I hadn't thought about this in years, but Wes Craven, I worked with Wes very, very early on as a young actor. And he said, I cast you because you had the best scream. I screamed I did a movie with him. I screamed and people came out of the offices to ask what was going on. And so, now I'm thinking back, I grew up on sci-fi, horror is something. I think I understand horror as an actor viscerally because it's just, I understand the feeling of just viscera. But I didn't know I could direct it. And that's what I have to thank 20th Digital for, because they came to me seeing my last short and said, why don't you pitch some ideas? I pitched them ideas, and this is the one they gravitated towards. And it was probably the best pitch out of all the ones I brought.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's really cool because I feel like, and this is my question, the short film was seen in a lot of means as a stepping stone, right? People that want to eventually make a feature, they make a short, they get their feet wet and everything. I kind of see now, though, and me personally, I just love watching short films. There's a lot of amazing short films, and I see that. Do you still think it's seen more as a stepping stone, or do you think it's its own thing these days? I'm curious about that.
I think it's its own thing these days. Yeah, I think it has come up as a genre to really look out for in terms of watching indie roots come alive. Yeah. Because nowadays, blockbuster films have overtaken our theaters, and no one has access to that kind of money. So, you can't really work on that level, trying to tell those kinds of stories. But if you're an indie filmmaker that's really invested in good storytelling, strong acting and visual ways of creating symbology, that's horror. Yeah. And that's what I discovered when looking at images and how to create symbols. And, the mask and the NIAN are just, mythological things here. So I really was given an opportunity to explore that kind of access to things that I would never have thought of had I just thought about stories. But when they said horror, that's kind of where I thought my imagination.
And I'm going to stop you right there because what you just said is enough. That's as much as I want you to kind of say about the film, because going in watching this short film fresh is the best, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm happy to, I'll zip it.
Well, no, I mean, I'll just say Chinese New Year, is something, that's all I'm going to say. But I mean, it's fun, right? Though, to just kind of dive in. And I think the bite-sized Halloween is genius, right? Like, you have all these amazing shorts that, like, I watched all these and I'm like, I didn't know what they were about. I knew the filmmakers, but I'm just like, I had a blast. Like, it's so much fun going in not knowing much about it, to be honest with you.
That's how I entered it, because they came to me and showed me a few shorts from past seasons. These are some of, watch these. And so I did, and I came out going, oh my gosh, this is brilliant storytelling. These filmmakers are amazing. It's short, it's fast, it's visual. So that was my experience as well. Absolutely.
Okay, I do want to ask you about a movie you did that I told you that. So
no,
the Invitation.
Karen Kusama, God, a genius, brilliant.
I told you before we started that movie single-handedly, because it came out 2015, right? I think you shot that 2013, 2014, but it was available 2015. That movie made me want to make movies and like get into like content creation. Like, it really did. You know what I mean? It's just like, did you know that you were making a film that potentially would have that kind of following down the road, or did you not really think about that? I mean, you can't really predict things like that.
That was a hard experience for me, because I was an actor and I knew I wanted to direct, and I knew I wanted to stalk Karen.
Yeah.
And so I was really having a hard time acting and also trying to shadow her as it was happening. It was such an intense set, and the nature of that movie was so intense that you couldn't really leave the moment. You had to stay in it. And that film, I knew she was incredible, but watching her artistry on that set was such a game changer for me in terms of like how you're supposed to do it as a director. Yeah. And so I call her friend, I stalk her, and anything she does, I know it's going to be something brilliant. So I think at the time I didn't realize exactly what the product was going to be, but when I finally saw it, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's just genius.
She's also an executive producer on Yellow Jackets, which is unbelievable. Yep. So yeah. That's cool too, right? Like, when you see a project and you see who's like tied to the project, you're like, okay, well, I love that stuff of that person, so I'm definitely going to check it out. That's always that's how because there's so much content these days, right, Michelle? That's sometimes how I also pick things to watch too, like the track record.
Yes. And she's had such an immense track record. And as a female filmmaker, listening to her talk about her experience, and she's so candid, and she's so smart. For me, I feel like it's a real privilege to be able to have worked with her and to be able to presently kind of draw on that experience. So for me, she's kind of the artistic mentor.
Is it refreshing to work in both worlds of like something like The Invitation that's more of kind of an indie that makes its its rounds on Netflix here and there, but it was kind of seen more as like an indie film, and then you work on Hollywood on Netflix, which is just all around just looks kind of big scale and just looks so glamorous and shiny and period piece. Is it really cool to be able to kind of work on those kind of two projects that are kind of on both sides of the, like, they're on both sides of the sphere, if you think about it.
Yeah. Wait, both sides of the sphere? Is that what you said?
Like the realm of like the landscape, right? Of like film and TV. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a whole thing, which is you have to break your teeth on material. Yep. You have to create content, whether it's good or bad. As a filmmaker, you've just got to cut your teeth on something.
Yep.
You have these different, let's just say there's auteur, and then there's like these glamorous projects where you have accessible money and budget. That's about producing and directing.
Yep.
So, how you develop your craft, which is a vision of what you're trying to say as a story, you've got to gain that from every experience you can get, no matter where you can get it. So for me, it's at the end of the day, It's about trying to absorb as much as I can, learn from the best. And you also learn from watching people fail too. You probably learn more by watching people make mistakes than anything else. So all of it is part of the world of making films. And, you know, when you finally get a budget, or if you don't have the budget, being able to say, well, I saw how this was made and I saw how that was made. That's where I feel like my experience of 20 plus years has come handy.
Oh, 100%. I feel like there's always going to be learning experiences though. With NIAN specifically, what are some kind of learning experiences? Because I feel like there's so much that kind of like goes into like, I think the movie's around 6 minutes in length, so to speak. And I feel like, you know, that's a bit of a misconception because it's 6 minutes, but there's so much that kind of happens making that. But like, what were some learning experiences specific on this project?
Thanks for saying that, because people might say 6 minutes, oh, it's only 6 minutes. But I'm like, it was really a lot of work. Well, you know, the setup is, and the way this, let's call it a program, because, you know, 20th Digital will invite people to pitch features. And, you know, it's kind of an incubation process for, if you're going to continue on with a feature, what would you do? And so that's what my experience was. I made the short, I learned from it. I also realized that if I'm going, this is what the budget got me here, you know, this is what a little bit more, if I'm given that, what can I do with that money? Like, I know I can't show the monster more than once, you know, like I know that with the budget I'm going to be given, like I understand craft wise, what I was able to accomplish with 6 minutes, if given 90 minutes, how I'm going to use that money and how I'm going to actually craft it in a very practical producing level, what is achievable. And then I have to write the story in scope to that. Otherwise, I can create something that's really glamorous and gorgeous, but I may not actually be able to execute it because you just need money when it comes down.
And the film's available this season for Bite Size Halloween, which is streaming now on Hulu. All the films are amazing. They can check it out. And then, you know, before we wrap up, like just another question about the invitation. You know, your character is Gina, and the whole situation where it's like trying, like where Logan Marshall Green like confronts the situation and he wants to know where Troy is and everything. I feel like
you really like this movie.
I love this movie, but I just feel but like, could you think of a situation where there's more tension than that scene? Like I challenge you to think of a more tension-driven scene. Like that was so much tension there.
Yeah, because you're so put into the psychological space of this character, so that we're wondering, where is Troy? Where is Troy? Right?
And then you completely forget about the fact that you took a sip early. Like I didn't even, like that was the biggest swerve where like I didn't even realize, like I was focused on the where's Troy, and then they have that, and then you rewind it, you see you take that sip right before everyone else. And like, yeah, oh, it's so well done. So good.
Lena was designed to have been the person to take that first sip.
Okay.
You know, when I came in to see Karin with the very first meeting, you know, I talked to her about very personal feelings of who Gina was from a very personal level. And I think that carried all the way through, is that she would be the one at the dinner table to be like, I got a drink, you know? So I think, you know, part of that, the process of making that movie and what I've taken on is that it's always has to be character driven. And
spoiler alert, I mean, it's funny. I talk about the film a lot on my show, like a lot, to the point where like people, like I've watched interviews that are like, I've seen you bring this movie up so many times. Like I went and watched it. So like spoiler alert, but there's a chance they haven't seen it. But like that whole sequence too, where like she's not breathing and then like it's Gina. Oh my God. That was terrifying.
Yeah. But you know, I think the moment of brilliance of that is when he does the gunshot.
Yes.
There is, and I think this was in the design. I know it's in the design of the film, which is about violence and how we numb ourselves to it.
Yep.
Is that it's done from a very realistic perspective, which is when you shoot someone, it is not as we see in the movies, that there's no consequences.
Yep.
There's such a consequence. And in that moment, that's what it's about. And that really taught me a lot about filmmaking in that moment, to really deal with the reality of something.
Yep.
If you want to make a meaningful film.
And that whole sequence is like, yeah, it's a cult, and it's like the whole "Where's Troy" thing, and then Troy shows up. But it's like, it did a very good job where, yeah, it's them, it's a cult and everything when he shoots the gun. But it really made you kind of teeter a little bit on like, who is the leader? What's happening? And then it just happens. You're like, oh my goodness. But that movie was so good. I'm rambling on. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on Pop Turn. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Bite Size Halloween season. It's season 3, right?
Yes.
Is streaming all now on Hulu. NIAN, your short that you wrote and directed is available there. It's fantastic. You have Instagram, right? People can keep up to date with on Instagram.
Yeah. That's probably the one I maintain the most. So go to that one.
Amazing. Well, is it just your name, Michelle Krusiec?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Turnative, youtube.com/Pop Turnative. Previous episodes. Michelle Krusiec's short that she wrote and directed NIAN is part of Bite Size Halloween season 3, streaming now on Hulu. Until next time, this is Michelle and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Turnative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Pop Turnative on YouTube. Be sure to like Pop Turnative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.